Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Community Issues. Tonight, we are going to do a profile interview of someone that you know very well, someone who's been in this program several times in the past. He is no one other than Jalal Rajanuddin Bai, as we call him. Jalal Rajanuddin Bai has been in politics for the last 50 years or so. He is a community, cultural and a political activist for the Bangladeshi community and the community at large. Jalal Bhai, good evening and Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for coming to my program. I know you're not feeling too well, but despite all of that, you've come, so I'm really grateful. Can I thank you on behalf of ATN Bangla UK for coming along?
Well, good evening and thank you very much for having me. It's good to be back with you and ATN Bangla. And obviously, we do not want to cancel it for the second time because originally we were planning to do the program at the end of February, I think.
Yes.
Before Ramadan.
That's right.
But we had problems. So I hope that the programs that you have done and the presentations that you have made about my generation will be of benefit to our future generations. I hope that they will be inspired by some of our achievements. They will learn from our failures and hopefully they will prepare better for the future.
Thank you so much, Jalal Bhai. Very well said. Of course, it is important to retain, to preserve history as to how the Bangladeshi community came and settled here and worked its way up through the political system. And you have been a pioneer in that. So therefore, it's only our duty to give you that respect and to ensure that the history is passed on to our younger generation so they know the correct history.
Thank you very much. That's more of a responsibility on our part.
Absolutely.
Than respect, because history and heritage passes through generations. And if we do not tell our stories, if we do not record our stories, then our future generations and their future generations will not know the facts.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, because we know for a fact that there are so many fake stories out there in the community, and therefore it's important to get the narrative right. So, Jalal Bhai, I am going to start with a little bit of history into your background. When I did the research, I found out that you came to the United Kingdom with your parents in May 1972 with a family voucher, and you started to live in Birmingham in an area called Smallheath. I also landed in Birmingham in 1973, about a year after you, and I landed in an area called Aston. So we both share a similar kind of background. Now, whilst you were in Birmingham, you attended evening language classes to learn English. You also worked in the catering sector. And then you moved to London in 1974, and we'll talk about what happened after that. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
So I came to the UK with my parents on the 31st of May in 1972, and that was immediately after the liberation war of Bangladesh. And the immigration rules were such those days that if some of the siblings were over the age of 18, they were not allowed to join the family.
Yes, yes, yes.
And their parents. And that is why we ended up with thousands of divided families.
Yes, yes.
The first night that I landed in Heathrow, after that I traveled to Brick Lane, stayed there with a relative for 2 nights. And after that, my maternal uncle came to London and picked us up as a family to go and live with him in Birmingham. And many of our families were connected to Birmingham and the north of the country, partly because those days the main employment opportunities were in the industrial sectors,
in the factories and all
the,
that,
the
yes.
manufacturing factories and so on. And so when I started living in Smallheath in Birmingham, I could not go to the mainstream school because I did not have sufficient language skills to be able to cope with the demands of the coursework and class responsibilities and education responsibilities.
Sure.
And that is why, like many others, I
I
started
did exactly the same thing, Jalbai, so
attending the
understand.
Sparkbrook Language Center.
Right.
That was the full-time mainstream education. But of course, as I explained to you about the divided families issue, my mom felt duty-bound to return to her older children, whom
So
she
she
had
went back to Bangladesh.
left behind in Bangladesh. And in any case, she did not like it in this country.
Because she could not speak, communicate, or
Yeah,
yes.
it was an
The
isolated
lifestyle
life.
was completely different.
Trying
yes.
to settle in a new society, in a new culture without language, it was all very difficult.
Sure.
And then, unfortunately, after a little while, a few months later, my dad became unwell, and he went back to Bangladesh and did not return because he stayed there in the village with the family. And as a result of that, although I lived in Birmingham for about 18 months or something, made some friends. I used to play football in this Smallheath Park with some Irish unemployed people who used to live in the same house
Right.
as us.
Okay.
And I used to mingle with them, and we used to have a good time.
Right.
But there were other times when I tried to help my dad with a bit of income by working in Bengali restaurants over the weekend. And that's how it went. But eventually I had to decide to move to London to stay with relatives and find employment with some of the relatives who were already running their own small businesses. And that is what brought me back to Tower Hamlets in the East End of London in 1974.
Right, Jalbai, we need to go on a short break. We will continue with your story after that. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We'll be back straight after the break. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying with us. We are back from our short break. As you know, tonight's community issues episode is about profile interview with Jalal Rajan Uddin, who's been a community, cultural, and a political activist for the last 50 years. Just before we went on break, Jalal Rajanuddin was telling us how he landed in Birmingham in an area called Small Heath in 1972, how long he stayed in Birmingham. And then my next question to you, Jalal Bhai, is you moved back to London in 1974 and you lived in an area called Whitechapel. You attended the secondary school there and you worked part-time in garments. You left school at the age of 15 without any qualification. What were you doing then? Can you tell us a little bit about what you did after that and how you got back into education and continued?
Yeah. So I was attending the Bow Boys Secondary School in Bow, E3. That was a no-go area for Bangladeshis. There are only just 2 Bangladeshi students, myself and Shahabuddin, who were...
Sorry, which Shahabuddin is this?
Shahabuddin from Mathura. You might have met him around the BYM. He used to live in Khanun Street Road. So he originated from Biani Bazaar. So we were the only 2 Bengalis.
So what was your experience like being in a school with just one other Bangladeshi?
It
Did you face any hassle or any racial harassment or tension?
We were both isolated. We did not have sufficient command of the language to cope with the coursework that was given to us by our class teachers. There was a lot of racial attacks. There was a lot of harassment. And those days, even teachers were not so sensitive to multicultural education. So all in all,
sounds like you've suffered a similar kind of treatment to what I've suffered when I was growing up.
Well, the expectations were not high because the teachers always thought that, you know, these guys are not going to continue in education. They're not going to achieve much.
They'll be a failure.
It's a matter of signing the register, making sure they attend. And then because we were frustrated, we found that there was no point in attending. We were bunking off, doing other silly things like many other young people. And eventually those days you could leave school at the age of 15 and get your NI card.
National insurance card.
So that you can work.
Start work, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after leaving school, I was supporting myself through jobs in the garment industry. I was doing a bit of trimming. I was doing work in clothing and, of course, leather garments as well. So whatever was available, whenever you did that for your own survival.
You had to generate your own income to support yourself.
You had to pay for your rent and your food and other expenses.
And your expenses, of course. Yes.
But one important
in those days, the challenge was really great on a young person like yourself who was growing up here.
But the only lucky thing around those days was the fact that you could find jobs.
So many manual jobs.
And they were low-paid jobs that nobody else wanted to do. But at least you could find jobs. Otherwise, you'd
you were working hard and long hours, on sociable hours, in order to earn.
There was a lot of exploitation.
Yes.
And you did long hours, but you did not make enough money.
Sure. Jalbhai, I'm not trying to cut you short. I've got lots of questions that I want to ask you.
Okay.
I mean, it's just the beginning that way we started. So you then attended the Whitechapel Centre in Myrtle Street, and you decided to go back to night school to continue learning English, and you ended up engaging yourself with sports, camping, and drama activities as well. You became associated with the late Shaha Lutfur Rahman in the Whitechapel Center, Myrtle Street.
He was
Can you
our
tell
English
us
teacher.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So late Shah Lutfur Rahman was our English teacher. That's where we went to learn English. But on other days in the evenings, we'd go to the same institute to learn drama or take part in cultural activities or even sporting activities and camping and so on.
Sure.
Shah Lutfur Rahman was very influential in my life, partly because I think he saw in me a young person.
He was going to be a dynamic leader later on in life.
That I didn't know, that I don't know, but he thought that he wanted me to be involved in community affairs.
Fantastic.
So he used to.
He's been an inspiration in your life. He's the one who motivated you, encouraged you, and gave you the support to
Yes.
be involved with the community.
And not only me, what he did is that he encouraged a group of young people of my age, my generation.
Right.
There were some 25 to 30 of us doing different things.
Right.
And he wanted to politicize us. And he would meet us
To be the next leaders in the community.
or get involved in community matters, because people just simply want to get on with their own lives and are not interested in other things.
Sure.
And he inspired and organized us to set up the Bangladeshi Youth Movement for Equal Rights in 1976.
In Fairclough Street or Hendrick Street?
No, that was much later. The organization was given birth at the Adult Education Institute in Myrtle Street.
Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
As a single person, I note that you ended up living in a hostel called the Touch Hostel, which was based at the Crescent in the Tower of London.
Minories.
Yeah.
Opposite
I would
the
have
Tower
thought
of
that
London,
at that
yeah.
time, not many Bangladeshis of your age lived in a hostel on your own. Why was that?
Well, before moving to the hostel, I was living with relatives
Right. Okay.
in Nelson Street, Rampart Street, and other places on a shared basis. We shared a room with other people.
Right.
And that was all in London E1. London E1 was the safe area for Bengalis.
Bengalis, yes.
And then eventually I got connected with Peter East, who was running the Tokaj Hostel.
Right.
And he was a friend of Shah Lutfur Rahman and Caroline Adams.
Right.
And by way of introduction, I got to know other people who were already staying there,
Right.
like Uncle Eklas, Faijubai,
Okay.
Chunu, Ahmed, a few people who became friends later on,
Right.
Surat. And I felt that this was very empowering, because I was going to live in a hostel on my own, but have the security of knowing that the hostel was there backing us,
Right.
homeless young Bengalis.
Sure.
And from that base, we were able to think more about community empowerment and community projects.
So it was the hub.
It was a community hub
Right,
at the
okay.
weekends. So in the evenings, Monday to Friday, you went to Myrtle Street. Saturdays and Sundays, you went to the hostel because you had the community hub there.
Okay.
And some people also went to the crypt,
Right.
which is underneath the church next to Aldgate Station.
Right.
And there you had the opportunity to join the club, play
Mingle with
pool
other
table
people,
and other games as well.
Activities, right.
So
Okay.
these were important hubs which encouraged people to get,
especially from the Bangladeshi community,
yeah.
to get involved and get to know each other, and
and as young volunteers, we were picked up from those places to go and do voluntary work when the Bangladesh Center was being set up in Notting Hill Gate.
Right.
And the same happened.
Were you involved with that? When the
I
Bangladesh
was a
Center-
volunteer there. I was a young volunteer. The
In the
main
Bangladesh
pioneers
Center.
were late Shah Lutfur Rahman, his wife, late Munni Rahman, late Aminul Haq Badshah, and other middle class people like Jamal Hassan, middle class Bengalis. But they used to encourage us, young people, to get involved. And we did some of the voluntary work there because there was a Manpower Services Commission project,
Right.
which gave little funding support
Right. So
to projects to promote community activities.
Right.
And Bangladesh Center was such a project.
Right. Okay.
And of course, the same happened with the Kobi Nazrul Center,
Huh.
because in the mid 1970s, some government money was available,
Yeah.
and a campaign was launched to establish the Kobi Nazrul Center. The pioneers were late Shah Lutfur Rahman, Matur Rahman Chaudhry, Ahmed Fakhruddin, late Tasadduk Ahmed. And these people once again were encouraging us young people to get involved, because
Yeah, yeah.
we would go to public meetings,
Yeah.
and we'll go and visit people in the area with the petitions. But we are getting a lot of hostility from white working class and white Jewish people.
The local people. Yeah.
They did not want us to establish the Kobi Nazrul Center.
Right. Right.
And I was physically attacked on one occasion when I went to a public meeting there, and a few of us, including myself, spoke in support of the project.
Right.
And the local white working class people did not like it.
Yes. Yes.
And they became violent.
Right.
But eventually, through campaigning for many months and years, we were successful in getting the funding allocated for establishing the Kobi Nazrul Center.
You not only got involved with the Kobi Nazrul Center, but you were also involved with other centers, the Jagonari Center, Davenant Center as well.
Yes, they came later when I became an employee of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets.
Tower Hamlets, right.
I was the assistant project manager of the Spitalfields project,
Right.
which was allocating the regeneration funding
Right.
that came from the then Department of the Environment.
Right.
And of course, the GLC was controlled by Ken Livingstone,
Ken Livingstone, yes.
and his colleagues. And they were progressive, and they wanted to promote
Ken
equality
Ken
for all
has
sections
been
of the
sympathetic
community.
to the Bangladeshi community or the ethnic minority community
Yeah.
in ensuring that equal fundings were available to all sections of the
It was through the leadership of Ken Livingstone that we were able to get some resources,
right.
because there was a lot of empty land and empty properties in Tower Hamlets.
Which was
And
not
I
allocated
remember
to people.
going to one meeting in the county hall by the river of by River Thames, and we went to a meeting there. We were simply going to get the approval for the Kobi Nazrul Center. But eventually what happened is that George Nicholson, who was the GLC councillor, who was also chairperson of the planning committee, he said, look, as you have got the resources, you have got the land, you have got the community there, then I would like to allocate the Davenant Center and the land adjacent to that center, which is empty at the moment, for a women's project. And that's how we established the Davenant Center, which was a community center for multipurpose use. But the Jagonari Women's Center was a particularly specialist project for the women.
Yeah.
But these are all now been closed down.
Yes.
They don't have any funding. The funding has been taken away by a former mayor of Tower Hamlets.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that,
Yes,
you know,
we know who
the voluntary sector has been decimated.
Yes, we know who that is, yes. So we won't mention any names. Jalbhai, I mean, obviously that's quite a lot of achievement. Now,
sorry, the other thing that we need to mention is that by the mid-1970s, the Bangladeshi youth movement was also able to acquire its own youth club premises at the Barner Club, which we used to go to.
Yes, yes.
That is the only Bengali led youth club in the United Kingdom at the time.
Yes.
And we were able to get that because by then I was connected to Dan Jones,
Yes.
a trade unionist who was very friendly with the housing officer from the GLC. And he kindly arranged for that building, old watch house, to be allocated to the Bangladeshi youth movement as a youth club.
Which was the Burner Center.
At the Barner Center, which has now been demolished and not replaced. So the young people down there have nowhere to go nowadays.
I mean, obviously, people like Dan Jones and many others, and I don't want to mention too many names, just in case if I forget someone, then I'll end up getting the blame. But Dan Jones, certainly, Kathy Forrester, Brian Merton, and few others. Caroline Adams is also one of them.
Yeah.
They've made a substantial contribution.
They made a contribution, but
the
they were
Bangladeshi
patch
community.
based. Dan was based in Shadwell,
Right.
Whitechapel side.
Okay.
Caroline was a youth worker, again based with Avenues Unlimited, Brick Lane side, but she covered the whole of the borough.
Right.
And of course, Brian Martin was the director of the Montefiore Center,
Right.
which later became a political hub for the British Bangladeshis.
Bangladeshi community,
And of
yes.
course, Kathy Forrester and her whole family were the few anti-racist people who came out to support
The Bangladeshis.
our anti-racist movement.
Right.
And they were heavily active
Sure.
against the National Front. And of course, they took part actively and encouraged others to take part in the Battle of Brick Lane in 1978.
Yes.
That was the turning point for the Bangladeshi community.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I can't hear you when I'm shouting.
No, that's fine. No, you're doing perfectly well, and thank you, as I said once again, for coming in. Although you're not feeling well, but you've decided to kind of not let me down and let ATN down. Yeah, and it's important for us to tell this story to our next generation. Now, Jalba, you've been very instrumental in terms of being the first General Secretary of the Bangladesh Youth Movement in 1976. You've been instrumental in mobilizing the community after the racist murder of Altabali in 1978. You've been involved in the Battle of Brick Lane in 1978, where you played a key role. And now there is a community exhibition compiled by Four Corners and also a documentary that's been made by Channel 4, is it?
Defiance.
Defiance, yes.
Yeah,
You've been involved in that, where they've kind of, I saw.
Yeah, well, they picked up the historical records
Right.
and portrayed that in the new documentary they made. And that was, I understand, a powerful documentary, although there are a lot of questions to be asked. But it was a very powerful documentary which helped us mobilize people during the riots that we had 2 years ago. Because the racists, the EDL, and Tommy Robinson and others were once again mobilizing against our communities and creating divisions.
Yes.
And I believe that documentary and the exhibition records that we have in Southall, Bradford, Birmingham, entire hamlets play a key role in informing our community about the resistance movement against racism and fascism. And they inspire us today, and they are being recorded. And I believe that nowadays younger people are getting to know more about
the history,
the history and heritage of our anti-racist movement.
Absolutely.
Because
and of course, the strategy that was used at the time, bearing in mind that a lot of the activists were probably not formally educated, but in terms of organizing the community, mobilizing the community, and getting them together to come out and fight for their right. And that strategy has been successful in establishing our rights over here. And as you've quite correctly said, that Four Corners have put up an exhibition, Channel 4 have made a very powerful documentary which showed how we got our rights here by opposing all sorts of oppressions, racism, and everything else that one can expect when they migrate into a new country.
You make a very important point about activists not being educated then. It is true, formally, not many people were educated. There weren't many professionals, but there was unity. They were not in anybody's pockets. These activists were not anybody's puppets. They were not being utilized by the establishment. They had an independent mind set, which allowed them to fight for community empowerment, unity, and destruction of the racist forces. If you compare the situation of the 1970s with where we are today, you will find that unfortunately more people are interested in our own personal gains, our status, our own financial gains, our professional gains. The commitment that I personally witnessed as a child of the freedom fighters of Bangladesh, those who supported the liberation of Bangladesh, and the freedom movement of a mini nature through the Battle of Brick Lane in 1978 tells us that, our people are united when they know there is a just cause and they are not deviated by personal interests or they are not motivated by personal gains,
external influences.
and unfortunately, that kind of commitment is rare to see in the present time.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, on those days, I think the biggest asset you had is the unity of the community as a whole.
People were united for the community cause. Because I remember there was a time when if you called on people to come out to defend their community or support their community or campaign against the fascists, you would get hundreds and thousands of people coming out.
Which is very rare nowadays. I'm just going to stop you because I need to go on a short break. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We're going to go on a short break and we'll be right back to continue with Rajanuddin Jalalbhai. Thank you so much. Dear viewers, thank you for staying with us. We are back after the short break. Tonight, community issues episode is talking to Jalal Rajanuddin, who's been a community, cultural, and a political activist for the last 50 years. We are talking about how he started his career when he came over to the UK and so forth. Now, before we went on break, Jalal Bhai talked about the Channel 4 documentary and also the exhibition that's been put up by the Four Corners. Jalal Bhai, after the racist murder of Altab Ali in 1978, which is now known as Altab Ali Park, it was St. Mary's graveyard then, wasn't it? At the time when he churchyard, at the time when he was murdered. Now, following the murder of Altab Ali, the Home Affairs Select Committee started gathering information on the Bangladeshi community as a whole. You, as a young man then, as a community activist, as a community leader, were pivotal in gathering that information and giving it to the Home Affairs Select Committee so that they could do a report on what had happened and how to help the Bangladeshi community establish itself over here. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what you did?
The anti-racist movement that we activated and the community empowerment movement that we implemented, which defeated the then National Front, and they had to relocate from Bethnal Green, was done through the Battle of Brick Lane in 1978. And the establishment got to know about our community a bit more than they did in the past, because the existence of the British Bangladeshi community was not properly recognized.
Right.
And so the slogans that we used during our campaign, here to stay, here to fight,
Right. Yeah.
what do we want? Justice. What do we want it now? What do we want? Equality. When do we want it? Immediately.
Immediately, right.
These are the slogans that reached the establishments,
Right.
and they got they eventually realized that the existence of the British Bangladeshi community cannot be ignored, and that is why the House of Commons decided that they will sponsor a Home Affairs Select Committee report on Bangladeshis. That will be about our community, our needs, our ambitions, our aspirations. And what they invited is for contributions and submissions from community organizations and various establishments.
Of course.
And
which they used as a background information in order to produce
so they
the
used
report.
a lot of official statistics, but also submissions about issues and patterns of
racial attacks and stuff,
and so on.
Yeah.
And so, as the former secretary of the Federation of Bangladeshi Youth Organizations,
yes, because the FBYO was formed in what, 1982, wasn't it?
1982 in Birmingham. You were at that conference.
That's right. Yes.
And I used to be the chairperson of the Tower Hamlets Association for Racial Equality as well. These were two very powerful organizations, and we made submissions to the Home Affairs Select Committee, and eventually they printed and published their report a few years later, initially in 1984, and then later, finally, again, the second draft in 1986.
Sure.
And, so that report highlighted.
In that time, I mean, we've talked about the fact that you left school at the age of 15. Dan Jones, Kathy Forrester, Brian Merton, and maybe some other people as well, helped you a great deal in terms of ensuring that you have the necessary professional competency.
Yeah.
They encouraged you to go to a college.
Yeah.
And you did. You listened to them. You went to the Kingsway Princeton College in Camden, and you later did a social science degree, and then a postgraduate DMS from the London Guildhall University. You then became involved with the trade union movement of the Labour Party and Tower Hamlets Law Centre in 1978, again encouraged by Dan Jones, Paul Beasley and Jeff White, only to learn that the traditional working class activists were not happy with new Bengali newcomers. And then later you learned that the left, the centre and the right wing of the Labour Party wanted to treat Bengalis as a second-class citizen. You then went on to mobilize and work with other anti-racist movements and the Bangladeshi community as a whole, and you decided to challenge the status quo and defeated the Labour's Annie Elbows, who was a councillor in Spitalfield. You got together with the community and you elected an independent candidate by the name of Nurul Haq, who was also part of the squatting movement. And from there onward, that in itself marked a political turning point for the Bangladeshis who were beginning to make inroads into mainstream Labour politics. Prior to that, if my understanding is correct, the mainstream political parties used to refuse applications from the Bangladeshi community, telling them there are no vacancies. Is that correct, or can you expand on that?
Okay. So there is a point to be made before that about education. I was always inspired by my mother about education.
Right.
And I also knew that education was essential for any advancement
of course.
In my life.
Yeah. Look, they say education is the backbone of a nation.
That's right.
Yes,
and so by then, late Shah Lutfur Rahman had returned to Dhaka for personal reasons.
Right.
And Dan Jones, in fact, helped me fill in the grant application form in my old flat in Delafield House.
Right.
And got me to submit it for a grant. And that's how I
got into
achieved my educational gains.
Sure.
As far as the political movement is concerned, the establishment was always against us. We were fighting against institutionalized racism, whether it be a political party or the town hall or the central government, whatever it is. The establishment was always against us. And so we needed to threaten them. And that is why the community got together in a meeting at the premises of the Bangladeshi Welfare Association in Brick Lane and Bangla Town. And we decided to form the People's Alliance of East London. And we nominated a number of candidates. All of them came very close to winning, but only Nurul Haq was fully successful.
Right. Out of the three candidates.
And I think that sent a signal to the political establishment that the Bengalis cannot be kept in their pockets anymore.
Right.
It is not sufficient just to get the Bengalis to support white politicians, whether it be Peter Shore or Mildred Gordon or whoever it is. Because people were asking for representation in mainstream politics.
So that's when they recognized that the time has come for the Bengalis to be part of the political.
But some of the enlightened middle class Labour Party members knew that this was the future because they knew about the history of political progress in the East End of London with the Jewish community.
Sure.
And they knew that the next community was the Bengali community, and that is why
will come through the system.
Some of the progressive came together to give a pathway for participation of Bengali activists. And of course, immediately after the election of Nurul Haq, the Labour Party was forced to nominate late Ashik Ali as the Labour councillor from your and my constituency, St. Catherine's Ward.
Yes.
And that's where it began. And there came a time when, of course, we had dozens of Bengali councillors
come through the system.
But once again, the establishment was happy for Bengalis to be second-class councillors.
Not
so,
first class.
So as far as they were concerned,
Just being a backbencher, basically.
stay happy with being a councillor. Don't ask for anything else.
Right.
Don't
okay.
ask for cabinet positions.
Right.
Don't ask for leadership.
Right.
Don't ask to be
A mayor.
the mayor. That came later on.
Yeah.
Of course, the mayoral system was introduced later on. But of course, don't you dare to seek nomination as a member of parliament or the European Parliament either.
Yes.
Those doors were closed.
Right. So there was a caveat. There was a caveat attached to it already.
These were different battles to be fought later on.
Sure. Jalbhai, you've been obviously a political activist since you've come here. Why did it take you until 1990 to become a councillor?
I personally was not interested in politics and position.
Right.
In fact, I am responsible for making many people successful.
I know that.
But at some point, some people felt that, I should take part.
And some of those very people stabbed you in the back when you needed them.
That's what happens, you see. This is political reality.
Sure.
And one cannot avoid that. But at least I was a part of the movement that enhanced the participation of Bengalis in mainstream politics.
Yeah.
And of course, we should have had a Bengali MP some 25, 30 years ago. We were 30 years late when we had Rusnara Ali, only because George Galloway was successful. Otherwise, Rusnara would not have been nominated by the Labour Party.
Tell me something about, I know there was a time when you were a hot cake to be the next prospective parliamentary candidate after the retirement of Peter Shaw. There was a gentleman agreement from what I understand. What happened? Why were you not successful?
I think one tactical mistake was that, the establishment did not want me to challenge Peter Shaw. And I did challenge him, and I did win the individual votes.
Right.
But then they had to use the trade union block votes to defeat me.
To stop you.
That was one mistake. Second mistake is that I was not obedient enough.
Right, okay.
Or in today's term, I wasn't right-wing enough.
Right, okay.
So if I was obedient, if I was...
if you listened to the party and did what they asked you to do, you would have been all right.
Yes, and if I wanted to become a puppet MP, then they would have allowed me to do that.
Be the yes minister.
Yeah, but they realized that I was not a yes man.
Right.
They realized
you were
that
standing up for the community, you were representing the community.
I have a mind of my own, and I was not going to be bullied. And I was not going to be a machine politician who says yes to everything.
Right.
And that is why they did not like me. And that is why the establishment went out of their way to make sure that although I had the popular support within the electorate and within the constituency and amongst the public, they made sure that I was not selected. I was excluded from the short list of candidates. But the consequence of that is bad, because what they did is that they imposed Una King. She lost to George Galloway because people were not happy with what had happened. And of course, when Lutfur Rahman was selected by a vast majority of the Labour Party members as a legitimate candidate,
we are talking
of the
about
party,
the executive mayor of Tower Hamlets.
he was also defeated systematically and thrown out of the party.
Yes.
And so the eventual result is that the whole establishment, not only in Tower Hamlets, the Whitehall establishment and the Westminster bubble and the judiciary was defeated by Lutfur Rahman and the community, because the people were fed up of the way the Labour Party and the right wing was treating our communities.
Okay.
And so the net result is that Lutfur Rahman has been elected 3 times, although nobody wants him from the establishment.
Well, we can see that the government, the local government secretary, has sent in a convoy with all sorts of irregularities apparently that are happening within Tower Hamlets Council. I mean, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty.
You can make all sorts of claims. If you find him guilty, then you will take him to task. They haven't been able to do that.
Right.
It's not only that. The right-wing politics of the Labour Party is so demeaning and demoralizing that good people who are loyal support of the Labour Party, who have given their lives for the Labour Party, have been displaced.
He's been
The
excluded.
treatment of Jeremy Corbyn is not fair.
Right.
You see, he's a left-winger, he's a socialist, but one of the most honest political people in this country.
I know Jeremy
and
quite
the
well,
way
yes.
and the way he has been treated is not fair.
Not fair.
You don't do that
What are your views on
because
the
Tony
current-
Benn and people like that were left-wingers.
Yes,
they were
absolutely.
tolerated in the Labour Party.
Yeah.
You remember what happened to Afsana Begum?
Yes.
They wanted to deselect her, but then
Yes.
they realized that the community is so upset that if they got rid of her, then they will be in trouble. And of course, her cause was supported by issues around Diane Abbott as well.
Yes. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
the clear message from the community is that the Labour Party should stop being the right-wing red Tory party. We need a Labour Party for the future, which is about serving the masses, which is about serving the many, which is about serving the people who are depressed, oppressed, and suppressed.
Do you think that's a wish, or is this going to be a reality that
This will be
happen?
a reality. Otherwise, Labour Party will.
Given the current circumstances and the leadership that we are seeing now, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I mean, that's me.
This
and my
leadership will not
personal
survive for
opinion.
very long. Let's see what happens with the local elections on the 7th of May, 2026. And as a consequence of that, I think there will be resignations. And in any case, if people find that the Tory party is speaking in more progressive language compared to the Labour Party, then they are not going to support the Labour Party as it stands at the moment.
But the current leadership in the Tory party is not someone to be proud of.
I'll never vote for the Tory party, as you know that. But the thing is that Labour has lost the moral compass. And unless we bring about policy changes,
Yeah,
personalities are not important.
of course. Yeah,
Heroes come and go.
yeah.
But the fundamental ideology that should dictate the policies and actions of the Labour Party must be changed.
Do you think those of who are MP from the ethnic minority communities are actually challenging the Labour Party there? Can I ask you to be very brief? Is there an yes or a no? Because we are going to go on a short break.
Yeah. I am sorry, some of the people who have been given positions, they did not even know that they were going to be nominated.
Right.
So that is why what you have got is effective handouts of positions because they wanted to show a multicultural front.
Thank you so much, Yalabhai. We'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We're going to go on a short break. We'll be right back. Thank you.
ঠিক আছে নি কিছু ফান্ডামেন্টাল ইস্যু টাচ
Dear viewers, thank you for staying with us. We went on a short break. We are back. Tonight's Community Issues profile interview is with Jalal Rajanuddin Bhai, who's been a community activist, a cultural activist, and a politician to the Bangladeshi community for the last 50 years. We've talked about his profile, how he got involved with the community, how he got involved in mainstream politics, and his views about various political parties. Jalal Bhai, I'm going to ask you something else. What are your views on this new so-called Reform Party and their policies? How do you think that will affect our community?
They want to divide our communities.
Right.
They want to create racial conflict. We cannot support them at any cost. And I hope that leaders of mainstream political parties learn a lesson. And that is, in our multicultural community, divisive politics is not good news for anybody. And that is why many of the political parties are being forced to take a step back.
But historically, they have always used this divide and rule tactics to gain their political gains.
They can do that, they can try to do that, but they will not succeed. Eno Powell did not succeed, Maggie Thatcher did not succeed. She had to resign eventually. And of course, Nigel Farage has a very clear right-wing, capitalist, racist political agenda. He cannot be supported, and he will not be supported. And that is why more and more people are supporting the Green Party.
Sure. Okay. I was going to say that on the front, the Reform Party is deploying people from various ethnic minority communities to show people that they are a party for all people, not just the right wing. What are your thoughts on that?
These people have always been with us. The British Empire used to employ people as agents who were from our own community.
Right.
That's how they colonized our people.
Sure, sure.
So we have to overcome our colonial past and colonial mentality.
Okay.
These people like Suella Beberman and others, they are not interested in the masses. They are not interested in the working class, black or Asian people or ethnic minorities. So I am less worried about them. As far as they are concerned, they want to get positions for themselves. They want to succeed and achieve for their own self-interest. Right. They are not for our community.
Right.
So at the end of the day, the people who are going to represent our community have got to have a mandate. And these are people who have got to know and understand the needs and aspirations of our community.
Right. Thank you very much, Jalal. I'm now going to move on because I do realize we've only got a few minutes left and there are a couple of other topics that I want to cover. So I said earlier on that you became a councillor in London Borough of Tower Hamlets in 1992 and you rose to become the deputy leader, the chairperson of the regeneration community from 1990 to 1998. In this capacity, you represented the London Borough of Tower Hamlets on the former London Dockland Development Corporation, which was known to be the LDDC, and that developed places like the Canary Wharf, the DLR, and the social accord developments in the area. We've talked about the fact that you went on to become a prospective parliamentary candidate, but because of the institution being against you, you were not successful. Now that you have retired from, oh sorry, there's one other thing that perhaps I should touch on, is that you were instrumental in renaming the Altabali Park, setting up the Bangla Town concept, including the annual Boishaki Mela, and established the local Shahid Mina. That's correct. I am now going to move on and just ask you that you are now retired from active politics. How are you spending your times? I see that you are going to a lot of demonstration for Palestine. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how you're spending your retirement days?
Yeah, I'm
And
happy.
we've only got 2 minutes, I'm afraid. So.
I'm happy and retired. I'm writing my own book. I have done my first draft. It's being edited at the moment. I'm active in the Stand Up to Racism movement and the Together Alliance, which mobilized some 500,000 people last weekend against the racists and the fascists. I'm active in the Palestine Solidarity Campaign because we support the cause of the Palestinian people. And I want to see not hundreds, but thousands of our people turn up for these demonstrations. We are against Zionism. We are not against Jewish people. We are not against Judaism.
We see a lot of the Jewish people are also into this demonstration.
So, but we do not see a large enough number of people from our communities taking part in these activities. And of course, reform has to be defeated because regardless of our political persuasion, conviction, or affiliation, at the end of the day, reform is an attack on our community. It's an attack on our survival as a community and multiculturalism in the United Kingdom. And that is why we should mobilize all our people with all our strength and make sure that everyone goes out on the 7th of May voting against reform and supporting progressive political parties.
Well, I hope the community have got the message. Jalal Bhai, thank you very much once again for coming along. I've really enjoyed having you in the program. And do you want to say a goodbye to our viewers before you depart?
It's a pleasure being with you, and I hope that we continue the discussions and give information about the achievements and failures and lessons that we have learned as a generation. And I hope that will inspire our younger generations.
Thank you so much, Jalal Bhai, for your encouraging words. Ladies and gentlemen, keep well. We'll see you again in the next program. Assalamu alaikum.